Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, what condition my condition was in.
Alon, did you see just what happened in the Warriors war room between Mike Dunleavy Jr. and Joe Lacob?
So I haven't seen the clip yet, but I have a feeling I will be seeing the clip very shortly here.
Let's
Derek.
just play it because the Warriors just drafted their first round selection at 11, Yaxel Lindenberg. But it seemed like Mike Dunleavy Jr. and Joe Lacob weren't on the same page. And if you've been following Bay Area sports today, it has been a PR nightmare from Buster Posey and the Giant Shit Show. And God, I'm so glad I'm getting away from that from a couple of days in Italy. But this just happened. The Warriors, if you're watching on the live YouTube stream, right before they make the selection of Yaxel Lindenberg from Michigan, you see in the corner here, it seems that Joe Lacob and Mike Dunleavy Jr. are on the same page on the pick. There's no audio, but yeah, Mike Dunleavy's like got his arms up the air, like, what's the deal? What do you have a problem with what we're picking? And then Joe's like, I don't really know. You know what? Go ahead and pick Yaxel. Do your thing, Mike. And then he's, I just want to make sure we get the right guy. And okay, keep playing it along.
Oh yeah.
Okay, hold on. Go back because it froze for me. Sorry. He kind of like, all right, Mike, do your thing. Go ahead. Yep. All right. And then he just kind of throws his hands up in the air. God damn.
And then walks away.
This guy.
Yeah. And then turns his back. And the thing is that the Warriors, I thought, made a great pick. They keep it simple, stupid. Sometimes that's what you have to do. He's a great player. He played wonderful for Michigan this year. 6'9" forward. Can rebound, can assist. I mean, he was their best player.
Yeah, but as Mac Van in the chat here says, what's up, Mac Van? Haven't seen you haven't heard you from in a while. Joey Lightyears and Mike D having interesting interaction right before they selected their player. Yeah, I would say so. People wonder why Bob Myers jumped ship a couple years ago and why Steve Kerr, kind of flirted with the idea of retirement or going into TV. It's all about Joey Lightyears, man. He makes it unbearable for his GMs and his coaches. Just your opinion, man. Alon to say, Derek Papa coming to you on a Tuesday night, right before I'm about to head off to Italy. I go tomorrow, meeting up with my family. My sister's getting married in Rome, and I am on the shortest trip you'll ever hear of going to Italy, where I'm there. I fly tomorrow. I get in Thursday afternoon Italy time, and I am there from Thursday to Sunday. I get like a little welcome, not a welcome party for me, but like a pre-wedding party, I guess, going down on Thursday. Then Friday, I get the all day to myself, and I'm terrible at planning, Alon. I thought that you could just go to the Coliseum and visit it, but apparently my little brother texted me today being like, dude, we need to buy tickets to go visit the Coliseum.
Yeah.
So got to do that, got to do all that shit. I'm hoping to do what I can on Friday, and then Saturday's the wedding, have a good time, and then flying back, not doing the show, not doing dirty work or KMBR on Monday, taking the whole day off to sleep, and then I'm back at it Tuesday, June 30th to react to NBA free agency. But I'll just say this, a lot of people are criticizing me for the short amount of time I'm going. 3 days in Italy with my family, quite enough for me, in my opinion.
Because of Italians or your family?
A little bit of both, Mamma Mia. But I never flown internationally before, so this will be a whole new process for me tomorrow.
Okay.
But this is the last podcast we'll do until next Tuesday. If there's some news, the first day of free agency, maybe we'll do that Wednesday. But quite the journey for me tomorrow.
It's about 70 hours for you to get as much Italian culture as you can in while still trying to stay awake and not die of sleep deprivation as well. So that's,
dude.
You know what? You're a warrior, Derek. You are a warrior. I was actually talking to my family about the fact that you were going to Italy for a couple of days because my sister had a destination wedding to go to in Hawaii, and she's not able to go just because, that's $4,000 down the tube.
Yeah.
So she's going to the bachelorette party and all that. And I went, yeah. I said, Hawaii, that's just so far. She goes, well, I would have went, finances were working out. And I went, Yeah, no, it's still just even maybe California is about my max distance, an hour and a half, one way or the other. So you're a good man, Derek. I would be skipping. I'm gonna skip a lot of things through the course of my lifetime, probably because I won't sit in an aluminum tube for longer than an hour and a half.
I don't blame you, dude. And I gotta like pick what movies I'm gonna download and everything, and podcasts. I got a couple of books that I bought just for this occasion. But 12 hours on a plane. I never done this before. And flying to Hawaii is one thing, but 12 hours. 12 hours. This is gonna be it's gonna be quite the journey, and quite the mental test for your boy. But I'll power through. I'll be back next week. And we got a lot to discuss tonight, so let's make the most of it. We got the Giannis trade. We got Brendan Sorsby.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, kind of getting screwed here, but we'll talk about it. Jalen Carter and his future with the Philadelphia Eagles getting impacted by Jeffrey Simmons. Could that be the trade we see with potentially Max Crosby going to the Philadelphia Eagles at midseason? Kyle Pitts got paid today, but let's start with the Warriors draft selection. You talked about it a little bit, Alon. Yaxel Lindenberg from Michigan. A lot of people say he was the most, I guess you could say, NBA ready prospect from Michigan. Just your thoughts, power forward. Hopefully a day one guy that could fill in for Jimmy Butler, but your thoughts on Yaxel Lindenberg being the 11th overall pick for the Golden State Warriors.
I really like the pick. He's actually a guy that Nate Oates at Alabama was trying to get before he committed to Michigan. He's a transfer from UAB, so really good player, 6'9", power forward, could play small forward as well, or maybe even 4 or 5 in some type of future death lineup, if you will. But can handle the ball really well, good two-way wing, really good defender, rebounds. Like I said, he can handle. That I think is one of the biggest things for Steve Kerr and what they want to do this season, as well as what Dunleavy Jr. was trying to draft as well. I think they realize they need more big guys who are multidimensional, who can handle the rock, and I think that is what they found in Yaxel. So I like the pick. Like I said, he was a key piece of what Michigan did this entire season, past season, and then in the tournament. So I don't think the Warriors screwed up here. I'm curious to see what exactly the conversation was between Lacob and Mike there, because this is like you're picking 11, right? And yeah, there's a lot more American talent in this draft than there had been in past years. It seemed like it'd been a lot of international players, which sometimes in the past used to be a gamble, but 11 is not 3, it's not 2, it's not 1. So I kind of feel like you just take the best player on the board there. And in this case, the best player on the board is helping your team and helping your team stylistically. So I want to know what, if any kind of conversation that was. What is the disagreement? What could it be about?
I hope they own up to it, because I want to hear what they say in the post draft press conference. If Joe and Mike Dunleavy Jr. are sitting next to each other, it's going to be an embarrassing moment for them. But it kind of comes with the territory of working for Joe Lacob. But yeah, dude, there was a lot of talk about whether the Warriors would keep this pick. There was trade rumors when it came to the Warriors and Kawhi Leonard and Yaxel Lindenberg, Trey Murphy with the New Orleans Pelicans. We'll see if those trades materialize, because we'll see. The bottom line is we'll just see what it comes to the Warriors this offseason. A lot of stuff up in the air, and we know that Giannis will not be a Golden State Warrior. We can cross off that pipe dream. But it's not in the realm of possibility, too, with the way that the NBA draft is. You can't trade draft picks while the draft is going on. And you saw it last night, or just a couple of minutes ago, where the Miami Heat selection at 13 overall will not be there. He will be a Milwaukee Buck. So for the Warriors, they could trade Yaxel Lindenberg if a trade happens this offseason. So a lot of things on the table right now. We talked about it last time, the rumors of Draymond Green opting into his contract, Kristaps Porzingis signing an extension. We'll see about that. I think everything's on the table with the exception of Steph Curry being traded. That, I think, is a given at this point, obviously.
Yeah.
But you got to think about what the options are. As I mentioned, Kawhi, Trey Murphy, Andrew Wiggins. Is he going to stay with Miami and play with Giannis now, or could he opt out and join the Warriors? There's the rumors about Klay Thompson being traded this offseason. Not going to stick around with Dusty May. Just real quick, Your thoughts, Alon, because you're into college basketball. You surprised that Dusty May jumped ship for the national champions, Michigan, and went to become the head coach of the Dallas Mavericks?
I think an NBA job sometimes, if it's there, you just got to take it. And Cooper Flag is a nice piece to build around. It's interesting. Yeah, I'm a little surprised because the college job is, I mean, you're kind of the king there, right? And in the NBA, you could get fired in 2 months. Even if you're a brand new coach who has the success that Dusty May just had, you could still get fired after 2 or 3 months. So yeah, you're trading job security and salary. I haven't seen what the new salary for him is in the NBA with Dallas, but you're trading security and kind of power for the prestige of being in the NBA. So, I mean, he could probably always go back to college at this point. So maybe take a shot at the NBA. It is interesting. You brought up Klay Thompson, and right before that, you were talking about the Heat. I actually think he could be a fit for the Miami Heat.
Oh, yeah. They need shooting.
They need shooters because they just traded away their whole team basically to get Giannis.
Yeah. No, 100%. So there's that. There's also the LeBron stuff, and I still think, we talked about it numerous times, but I still think that he's going to sign with the Lakers. But there is the element of him being intrigued at 41 years old, playing with guys at the same stage of life that he's at in their basketball careers and in life in general. So does he like the fact that he can relate to Steph Curry more than he can relate to Luka Doncic or, Draymond Green than anybody else on that team at this point? So I think that in the end, money will talk, and the ability to play for a championship will talk more than him signing with the Warriors. It'll probably come close. We'll hear reports and whatnot, but ultimately I think LeBron James goes to the Lakers, and I just don't see Kawhi Leonard being given up that easy by Steve Ballmer. So I gave you the options here. I'm hoping that the Warriors make some moves here, and it's good to see them get younger with Yaxel Lindenberg. But when it comes to getting veterans on this team to fill in for Jimmy Butler and Moses Moody that will be gone for either a majority of the season or all of the season, I hope they hit on something this offseason. Even though I'm not loving some of the options, I hope they do something here in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm not loving the options either, and all the good options are pretty much older. Like you said, LeBron James, we'll see. I mean, I'm hoping that happens. It's interesting, the Steve Ballmer point. Yeah, they've invested a lot into Kawhi Leonard, and Kawhi, just whether he plays or not, how often he does, that's always fascinating. But yeah, that would be tough for them to let him go eventually to a team that they've had a lot of battles with in the Warriors. So I don't know. I think the Yaxel Lindenberg pick, he is NBA ready, I would say right now. I'm not going to pretend that all of a sudden, you don't need to go out and get one of these great wings because you drafted Yaxel. You still need to find a piece to help. At this point, it seemed like if anything big was going to happen for the Warriors, it would have happened earlier last season. And for whatever reason, it didn't. And I just don't know what options are available for them. I do like the idea of them re-signing Kristaps. I mean, we love that. Wiggins is interesting because I think Miami has to keep Wiggins. Can you let another viable NBA starter go here when you've just traded Tyler Hero and a few other guys that you've had as the Miami Heat organization? You've gone all in on Giannis. So I don't know. And I don't know if I want to see Wiggins back with the Warriors, not because he's a bad player or anything like that. It's just, he's not consistent, in my opinion. He's one of the biggest untapped potential stories of all time in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, more than fair. I just think that Steve Kerr and Steph Curry love playing with him, so that is an option, but you're probably right. If you're Andrew Wiggins, though, I don't know what amount of money he's making this year, but it's probably best to stay with the Miami Heat at this point. But let's start with that, Alon. And a guy that was on the Warriors' radar for quite some time, and they made an offer at the deadline. It was kind of looking there for a little bit of time where I think Brian Windhorst, everybody was saying that the best possible deal for the Milwaukee Bucks at the trade deadline was going to be the Golden State Warriors. And obviously the Bucks passed. Giannis stayed with the Bucks, and he was just traded up he was on the team until yesterday when they finally made the move. There was a lot of talk between the Miami Heat and the Boston Celtics over the weekend. It felt like the Miami Heat was going to be the destination. And then yesterday, when Shams Charania is doing breaking news, Giannis will be traded. It was just like, that's not breaking news. He will be traded before the NBA draft. and it was leading in the direction of the Boston Celtics and Jaylen Brown going to Milwaukee. Then we get the notification last night. The Heat are the winners of the Giannis sweepstakes, and they get Tyler Hero. I'm going to butcher some of these names, so bear with me here. Khalil Ware, Jaime Jaquez, Kasparis Jakukias. I should have done my research beforehand.
Giannis. There you go.
Thank you. Appreciate you, Alon. 3 first-round picks, 1 pick swap, and 1 second rounder. So altogether, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players. Wait, I got that right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, 4 players. 3 first-round picks, a pick swap, and 1 second rounder. So this is a lot more than what the Boston Celtics were offering, which was Jaylen Brown and 2 first-round picks. There was another younger player that was on the table, I guess, that the Bucks wanted, but the Celtics stood their ground and said, no, we're just giving you a pretty damn good player to build around in Jaylen Brown and then 2 first-round picks. I understand why the Bucks went with this move, because it's a lot more players and a lot more picks. But I also think it's not anybody substantial. Tyler Hero's a player that grew up in the Milwaukee area, and it's really, again, for the Bucks, it's not about winning for the here and now. It's about building this team up again. So they got enough players to build up their roster. With who's that coach now? Jenkins. What's his first name? He used to be with the Memphis Grizzlies, the Memphis Grizzlies for quite some time.
Taylor Jenkins.
Taylor Jenkins. Thank you.
He just looks like a dad.
Yeah, he does look like a dad. But I get why the Bucks went with this move, with the amount of draft capital and the amount of players they're getting in return, even though I'm not amazed with any of the players they got. But yeah, I mean, I saw last night Ryan Russillo kind of rip this trade to shreds, just being like, this is terrible for Giannis. You're telling me you can't get a substantial star? Like the Miami Heat just gave away their entire roster with a bunch of scrubs. And I'm like, I don't know if they're scrubs, but I hear him. It's not a big-time player. And Jaylen Brown would have been, but also I understand why I think Jimmy Haslam has some stake in the Milwaukee Bucks, and he just traded away Myles Garrett. You're not going to trade for a guy in Jaylen Brown that doesn't want to be there.
I was just going to say it's going to be Jaylen Brown very much becomes a kind of a rental piece because he's not going to stay in Milwaukee.
Absolutely. So, and he's contract eligible, I guess, next offseason. So you don't want to make that move. But when I saw this, okay, Giannis on the Miami Heat, who's he playing with? Bam Adebayo. They could, we'll see about Andrew Wiggins. He could opt into his contract. Is it Powell? Is it Norman Powell? Or sorry, what's his first name?
Norman Powell plays for the Clippers, I believe. So Powell on the Heat is, let me tell you.
He's a free agent. I know that.
Oh, it is Norman Powell. Yeah, it is Norman Powell. Yep.
Norman Powell. They got, I think it's Davion Mitchell is their point guard. So, and they don't have a lot of cap space this offseason, so I don't know how much free agent signings they can have. But yeah, Giannis makes that team better, and it's a better situation than it was in Milwaukee. And I heard some people say like they're a top 5 Eastern Conference team. Yeah, probably. But isn't it enough for Giannis to get out of the first round? Like, that's what this move was all about, right? And it's a very attractive destination. As you said, Alon, it's an international city, and Giannis could be the superstar. He can run that team. He was running Milwaukee too, but he much rather play with Bam Adebayo, I guess, than Miles Turner. For me, hold on, I know I'm rambling here, just real quick. For me, when I see the roster that Giannis has to work with here, and great coach in Eric Spoelstra and great front office and Pat Riley, they always get big superstars. It's part of Heat culture. It's kind of the same situation it would have been with the Warriors, honestly, where if he got traded to the Warriors, I'm not saying the return from Milwaukee would have been fantastic. It probably wouldn't have been 3 first-round picks, Jimmy Butler or Draymond Green, and Pods or Moses Moody. Take your pick on that one. But it would have been where Giannis plays with Steph and Draymond for a few seasons, and then he's got to build the team up again. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what's going on with Miami, where, yes, Miami's a beautiful place, but he's got to build that team up. Or I don't know how long can Bam Adebayo be there with them? Is that a good fit stylistically with this, with the type of basketball they're going to play? So I know that, look, it was a pipe dream. It's a big ask. In the end, they don't land him. But the fact that he goes to Miami, I'm kind of thinking like it's kind of the same deal to me as him going to the Warriors, honestly.
Return wise, I agree with you in terms of, yeah, Milwaukee would not have gotten a better deal from the Warriors. Just you're not going to get that amount of picks, and the players that you're getting, we'll see. But so Bleacher Report, they put out kind of what the potential starting lineup would be for the Miami Heat. So you'd have Norman Powell, Andrew Wiggins, Bobby Portis.
Oh yeah,
Giannis.
Bobby Portis is part of the trade too. Forgot about that.
But yeah, that's what they wanted to have. But Bobby Portis is part of the trade, so he's with the Heat now. And then so you'd have a front line basically of Portis, Giannis, and Bam. That's a massive team, just size wise. I mean, defensively, they could be a nightmare if they're able to switch. I have questions about Giannis's health, but yeah, like how long is this? Let's just say that's their starting five. How far does that starting five get you? And how long does that starting five even stay together? And are you then trading pieces from that starting? Like, are you then trading Bam Adebayo away eventually to get more pieces to build around Giannis? And Giannis is 31, so I'm not going to say he's an older player, but he has had injury problems too. So
yeah,
I still don't understand why he didn't force his way to Boston. I mean, maybe he just really wanted to be in Miami, but I was talking about this with a friend today over at CBS, and it kind of seems like he's satisfied with the championship he got with the Bucks. And he's like, I'll go live in Miami and just have fun playing basketball. And if that's the case, that's the case. But I don't know. This doesn't look like, I mean, they're going to be dangerous. Don't get me wrong if everybody's healthy, but yeah, there's a lot of holes on that roster. I mean, they have a starting five and then they need a bench.
Well, yeah, as you said, like it would be nice for them to get like Klay Thompson. I think that would be the right move for Klay Thompson, just to get the hell out of Dallas with that team rebuilding and go to a very, very nice spot in Miami. But they do need 3-point shooting. And I think with Giannis, his whole thing was, I got to win another championship. That's what this is all about. And, Miami has been close. Also, as I said in the past, and I think this is a very different team. This is not the Jimmy Butler Miami Heat, but interesting that he goes to Miami and, that culture, the team that definitely punked him twice in the postseason. I haven't heard one person say like this is the weakest move by a superstar to go to a team that you lost to twice in the postseason. But then again, it's not the same thing as Kevin Durant going straight from the Thunder, having a 3-1 lead, to then bouncing to the Golden State Warriors. Very different. I acknowledge that. And it was a trade. It sounded like he was willing to sign an extension with the Miami Heat, the Boston Celtics, or the Minnesota Timberwolves. And the Timberwolves just didn't have the draft capital to give up in a trade. They have the players. They would have given up Jaden McDaniels, or they would have had to, Naz Reid, somebody else. But in the end, Minnesota, they made a different trade last night by sending Julius Randle and a first-round pick to Brooklyn, so Brooklyn could take on that contract. That's dicey for Minnesota. They're still trying to get a point guard, I believe. But yeah, I don't love the move for Giannis. I just think that he's always said in the past he doesn't want to go to a super team. So, but then again, like if that's the whole goal is you're trying to win a championship, I would have much preferred to see him go to the Minnesota Timberwolves or Boston, play with Jason Tatum, or go to the Golden State Warriors. But in the end, he decided that the best thing was to stay in the East and play with a team that has pieces, but not enough, I think, to win a championship right now.
Yeah, that's the thing for me. So I kind of was thinking, so who is the top team in the East right now? It's Boston.
Knicks.
Okay. Do you think it's the Knicks?
They
won the
championship.
So
yeah,
I know they just won the final. Okay, so it's between Boston and the Knicks, right?
Yeah,
probably. Would you then put the Heat above the Cavaliers? Would you put the Heat above healthy Pistons, a healthy Pacers potentially? I mean,
I got to see how things play out this offseason, but I would say right now, I would go. I don't think it's a debate. I think the Celtics got exposed in the postseason by the 76ers. And I think the Knicks would have done the same thing to them. It's not. Okay. It's much more than Jason Tatum tearing his Achilles, and they lost to him a year ago in the postseason. I think it's where they're just 2 3-point dependent, and then you get more size on that team. So Giannis would have helped greatly. If I had to rank it, I would say Knicks 1, Celtics 2, Cavs 3, and I'll go Heat 4. I'll go Heat 4 for now. Yeah.
So yeah, the books have right now after the trade, they have Boston kind of as the odds-on favorite to win the East. The Knicks right behind them, and then the Heat. And I'm like, I just don't. I think that's such a large leap. I mean, it's going to be a new situation. Health is so important, and these are futures we're talking about. So we have to see them play basketball first. But I think that it's not going to be easy for the Heat all of a sudden to become contenders. I know the Knicks were able to go on this magical run, but they have a really complete team, and I just don't see that with what the Heat have.
Yeah, I agree. They have a lot to work. They have a lot of work to do. And now on the flip side, with how involved Boston was in the conversations, what happens to Jaylen Brown? And there was a lot of talk today that teams have inquired about Jaylen Brown, but I think it's where the Boston played this interestingly in the media, where some people were reporting that they were giving up Jaylen Brown. Some people were like, they don't feel comfortable in doing that. They're kind of uneasy about Giannis being a part of the trade conversations. I think they want it to be where if they lost the sweepstakes with Giannis, then they can easily go back to be like, well, we weren't shopping Jaylen Brown. It was just that Jaylen Brown was a part of these trade conversations. Same thing the way that Mike Dunleavy Jr. reacted when Danny Emmerman locally here asked him about Draymond Green being shopped. And he goes, whoa, hang on here. Draymond wasn't shopped, okay? Draymond Green is going to be part of our success going forward. And technically he was right, but if you're going to trade for Giannis, you have to include a big player. So I'm assuming they offered Draymond Green or Jimmy Butler, whoever it was. But now it has to be where, does Boston just run it back? They were a good team before. They just won the championship a couple years ago. Can they run it back with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, or is it where there's awkwardness now? Is it where Jaylen Brown this past year said it was his favorite team favorite season playing in the NBA? It's kind of like an A.J. Brown situation where even though they have a championship, one player in particular is not happy with just that. He wants more.
Yeah, and that's what I don't get. Back to Giannis, because that's kind of all he's been talking about is wanting more championships. And in my opinion, he forced himself to a wonderful organization, but an organization that's not in a place right now to contend. As far as Brown goes, I don't think he was being shopped. I agree with that, but you were going to have to give up something significant player-wise if you didn't have the pick capital that Miami did, or the want to clean out your roster, basically. So, yeah, I mean, the Celtics are going to run it back. To me, I think they are the best team in the East, even though they didn't win the championship. And, yeah, they had troubles in the playoffs this year. I just think that talent-wise, they're just unbeatable in some ways. Maybe not unbeatable, but I think Jason Tatum, when healthy, can just change the game for them. Brown, of course, is amazing. But, yeah, I think they should run it back. And if they have a successful season, I think everything kind of eases out with them organizationally and roster-wise. But at the same time, like, would you be surprised if Brown's not there after this season?
I would not be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if in a couple of weeks he's traded. Like, there's been talks about him going to the Clippers, and I think Steve Ballmer wants to, add more of this offseason to help Kawhi Leonard, even though he's got 1 year left on his deal. And again, I want to hear from Kawhi Leonard what he thinks about staying with the Clippers. So maybe we get more movement once free agency actually starts a week from today on June 30th. But the way Jaylen Brown has gone about things, doing, live Twitches and comments in the past, kind of makes me believe that he's over Boston and wants to have his own team. That being said, I think also offenses can be mended here. And I know that he does have a good situation with the Boston Celtics. As I said, they just won the championship a few years ago. So why not go back? You're not going to have a better situation. It could be where his ego is hurt. Like we saw what happened a few years ago where he wasn't selected to be part of, the Olympic team, and his teammate Derek White got selected over him, but he was put off by that. Yeah. And also he was finals MVP. So I think if I was Boston right now, I would still try to get a big, and maybe you trade Derek White in order to get someone like that. But I think you just run it back with Jaylen Brown. You try to do that. You had a good thing going. You don't need to blow it up. You do need to get more size. But I wouldn't trade away Jaylen Brown. This was only an exception because you have the opportunity to get Giannis.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And for Jaylen Brown, I think all he needs to do is just look a bit further west in his own conference, and or just a bit across the country, and see how hard life can be sometimes for Anthony Edwards. I mean, that's a great scorer, a great player, but it's much better to be on a team where you're playing with other great players.
Yeah, exactly.
So to me, I get the idea of wanting to have your own team and be the alpha and the captain and all this kind of stuff. And it will always be, as long as he's there in Boston with him and Jason Tatum, it'll be, is it Jalen or is it Jason who's kind of the alpha here? But it doesn't have to be that way. I think the alpha in a way is Brown, but he's not the wing. He's not the big. And that's just kind of the way the league is. So if I was him, I would want to stay put in Boston. For as long as that team is being run the way they are and the success that they're having, I wouldn't want to leave that. Plus, it's a historic franchise, NBA-wise.
Absolutely. So we'll see. His name's out there along, as I said, Kawhi Leonard. Ja Morant has had some trade rumors out there as well. So we'll see what happens. I thought that maybe we get more trades piling up after the Giannis move last night, but, the draft happens today. We'll see what happens in the days leading up to free agency a week from today, but yeah, so far, the biggest move to this point, obviously, is Giannis Antetokounmpo being traded from the Milwaukee Bucks to the Miami Heat. Moving on here in the world of sports, a topic that we've been talking about for quite some time has been Brendan Sorsby. Mm-hmm. And we thought that he would, I guess Monday was the day to declare for the NFL Supplemental Draft. And we thought that would be the next process. So just to catch you up on everything, Brendan Sorsby was deemed ineligible this season for Texas Tech. He transferred to them in the offseason, and he checked himself into a rehab facility because he was caught gambling years ago, 2022, when he was a backup quarterback for Indiana. Placed thousands of bets for minimal money, but he did bet on his team. So this year, he checks himself into a rehab facility, says he has a gambling addiction to make the PR seem a little bit better. I'm kind of skeptical on that. And the NCAA comes back and says, sorry, man, you bet on gambling. You're out. You are suspended for the entire season. And then he sues the NCAA, gets an injunction from a Texas County judge, and he is granted permission to play this season, with the exception of 2 games. Then the Big 12 sues Texas Tech after so many people speak out and say, we can't have this. This is not what college football is all about. So then Texas Tech feels the pressure and tells Brendan Sorsby, dude, it's best you just go away. So he drops the lawsuit, he drops the injunction, and he's prepared to go into the NFL Supplemental Draft that hasn't taken place since 2023. A player hasn't been selected since 2019, but there's been numerous cases, Bo Jackson, Terrell Pryor, Chris Carter, many different players through the history of the NFL that had something go on in college and was granted the opportunity to do the supplemental draft. And usually it's not where a ton of guys are being drafted during that process. It's just one name and one name alone, And it's kind of like an auction, honestly. The process is where I think it's where teams that won 5 games or less are first up. And I think it's like a conference call where, teams go around and say, okay, who's got a bid for a first round pick, second round pick, third round pick? Put your bids in. And that's what Brendan Sorsby thought was going to happen to him. Not the case. The NFL came out today and said, we are not holding an NFL supplemental draft this year. And we're not going to hold it for you.
Yeah.
And I've never seen this before where the NFL wrote a letter to Brendan Sorsby, and maybe it's because we got so much news and stuff given to us through social media now. All these guys are tapped in, the insiders. But all of them had access to the letter that was sent to Brendan Sorsby and his attorney saying, basically, I'm going to say this in just layman's terms, we weren't planning on holding we weren't planning on holding this event, and we're not going to hold this event because of you. And just because you want to, because you gambled, you got screwed over. We're not going to have an NFL supplemental draft just because you screwed up 4 years ago. And we've seen in the past, guys have, been busted for, whatever, the tattoos or drugs or whatever it may be in the college level that prevents you from going to the traditional NFL draft. Josh Gordon, I forget about him all the time.
Oh, yeah.
He got selected in the NFL supplemental draft. But basically, the NFL told Brendan Sorsby today, we're not holding this event because of you. And we kind of find it interesting that you're declaring for the draft just a couple of days before there's the deadline. And really, we're not holding this event because of the PR and your involvement in gambling. It's a totally different animal. And now Brendan Sorsby, understandably, is pissed, and him and his agent are going to, or his attorney, I should say, are going to sue the NFL over this incident. He, could stay quiet and go into the 2027 draft class with a lot of other prospects, probably better prospects, quarterback wise. But Brendan Sorsby wants to fight the NFL. He wants the NFLPA on his side, and this is not going away. I thought this would be, a process that we talk about this prospect during, July, and these scouts are going to do a lot of tape on him. Not the case. Brendan Sorsby denied to play football in 2026.
Yeah, he's not eligible, just to kind of further paint the picture here that you already did, Derek. He's not eligible to go back and play in college football. So that's off the table, right? So because he already said, hey, I'm revoking my NCAA eligibility, or resigning it, or whatever you want to call it, surrendering it, and I'm going to go into the supplemental draft. They tell him, hey, there's no supplemental draft because of you. He cannot be signed as a free agent by any of these teams this year. The only way he can get back into the NFL is to declare himself eligible for a draft. That would be the 2027 draft, and then either get drafted or go undrafted and then sign. His options as of now, as you said, they're having a lawsuit against the NFL, which I think is the wrong move. Even if the case might be decent, I don't think that the NFL is going to lose that case. I don't think Brendan Sorsby is going to win it. And even if you do win it, the NFL is going to be talking to Roger Goodell is going to be talking to every single one of those teams and saying, you signed this guy, I'm putting your team, your organization under the biggest microscope I can find. So that's not good for them. So they probably will not touch him. So he has options of playing in the Canadian Football League. He could play like in the UFL or whatever, some of these spring leagues next year, but that's about it. And so through his choices, whether he has a problem or not, let's just say he does, have been so poor and so bad, especially with how big gambling is now and how regulated the leagues are over it, that he has screwed up the entire start to a potential NFL career. I do think it's underhanded in a way what the NFL did, but it was not unpredictable. It was petty, though. It definitely was. And they don't want to deal with the PR nightmare. Yeah. But I don't think the PR would have been that bad. I think it would have been bad had something happened, but I think that would probably necessitate the need for an incredibly stupid individual in Brendan Sorsby to do what he did again. And I'll use that kind of harsh language about it. So, yeah, kind of underhanded what the NFL did. Not surprising. I wouldn't sue the NFL. That's his right. But, yeah, he's kind of between a rock and a hard place now. Is he going to go play in another league? Is he just going to sit around for a year and then declare for the draft? Because he's got nothing to do now. I mean, and there's only so much training you can do on your own.
Yeah, it's tough. He's in a tough situation. Just to get the exact quote, Pete Thamel of ESPN, Jeffrey Kessler, who's gone after the NFL before, is Brendan Sorsby's attorney, on the decision of the NFL to not hold a supplemental draft. It's a violation of the CBA and the law. We will pursue this immediately with the NFLPA. And Mike Florio, who I'm not a big fan of, he does know the law pretty well. He's a former attorney. He says he has a case here, 100%, that the NFL kind of screwed him here. I'm with you, Alon. I think that it's twofold. I get both sides of it. Where I think Sorsby was kind of led on here, thinking that he would be able to go to the supplemental draft. And then the NFL doesn't want to be a part of this story. And in the end, Sorsby probably would have been suspended for the entire season because the NFL, I don't think they like the idea of him just thinking that he could get away with this. He could just leave college football and go to the NFL, and he's not going to get a slap on the wrist. He'll get much more than that. But this was a college football issue, not an NFL issue. However, how often, I mean, like we've seen that so many times where a guy does a mistake in college and it definitely impacts his future in the NFL. So I don't think that's a case to be had there, but I do think he should get a fair chance to play. I don't think that even though this was a dumb thing he did years ago, and I support the NCAA's decision to make him ineligible for this entire season. That being said, he does have a right to play football. This isn't where his career needs to go away. He doesn't need to be ostracized from the game like Pete Rose, where he knew the rules and he did it for years as a manager. I think that this kid's career is just starting, and he should be able to play football. When that happens, I guess at the earliest it will be 2027. But I think the NFL and Roger Goodell did not want this nightmare where a guy who's at most going to be a backup quarterback this season, and a lot of teams have solidified backup quarterback positions, but at the most, Brendan Sorsby was going to be a backup quarterback, and whether he was going to be punished or not, I would assume he would have been. There would have been a lot of talk around this. I think they just wanted to avoid this PR nightmare, so they told him, "Look, dude, just because you're getting sued by the Big 12 and teams don't want you playing in college football doesn't mean that you should come to our league and basically fuck it up. So you just need to go away for a while, and that's going to hurt his draft stock 100%. We'll forget about him in a year. And does he play at another level? As you said, Alon, does he play? What leagues are out there right now? CFL, XFL, whatever it may be. Then maybe Brendan Sorsby's best option, which is, I understand the NFL wanting to, not be a part of this situation. At the same time, they did kind of screw this kid over a little bit.
Yeah, I don't. Right to play football is interesting because I don't know if he has a right to play in the NFL. He definitely doesn't have a right anymore to play in the NCAA. That's for sure, because he's surrendered that ability. I do think his best option is to go play in one of these other leagues because I just can't imagine a quarterback sitting out that long who already has this issue, kind of hanging over him and not getting game time, not practicing, even if it's, a second tier talent kind of deal. I think you still need that. So I think that's his best option, but it is twofold. The NFL could have made this much more clear and apparent to him and his people at the outset. And I feel like he probably got blindsided, sideswiped big time by this. So I don't like that. That's very underhanded of the NFL to do. I also think that, look, the fact that they're deciding not to hold a supplemental draft just because of him, if that's the way you're going to handle gambling from now on, then I expect the NFL to be just ruthless when it comes to this stuff. But I know it's not going to be that way. It's going to be, oh, well, if it's a superstar player or if it's, someone that we care about or whatever the case is, we're going to have different rules for different peoples. But that's not the way it's working out for Sorsby. So, yeah, he made bad choices. He's getting screwed over because of them. It's not all entirely his fault in terms of what the NFL is doing because they are acting petty in their own way. But he's now going to have to rebuild himself from the ground up. He's going to have to go play in the CFL or XFL, UFL, or any of these other leagues. I don't know all the acronyms. I mean, they pop up and they fold overnight, it seems like.
Exactly. As Ernie once says in the chat here, Derek, NFL doesn't need him. He has a right to play only if a league wants him. That's 100% true. Yes, the NFL will be fine without Brendan Sorsby. I just think that, I don't know. Gambling is different these days. It's I don't want to talk on both sides of my mouth here, but when I pound on the table and say, like, this is the Pete roasting, you can't gamble. I think we think differently about it these days. I just, someone must have told him through this whole legal process that he was going to be eligible for the NFL supplemental draft. In the end, the NFL decided we don't want him. We don't want him. We don't want this nightmare. We don't want this PR nightmare with him on an NFL team. I get that from the NFL standpoint. I just think that along the way, someone could have told him this isn't an option. I think the NFL could have done him, I guess, a service, and he has no right to play in the league. That has to be earned. But at the same time, someone must have screwed up by telling him, okay, drop the injunction, go play at the NFL and work it out for a year. You may not play football right away, but at least you'll be drafted in a sense, and you can, figure out your future from there. But, maybe because this is such a hot button issue, it's been talked about on, national TV, that Roger Goodell saw this more and more and was like, I don't like this. I don't like this at all. We're going to have this team. We're going to have this kid on a team this year, and we're in bed with DraftKings and all these sponsors, and I just don't want the same headache that the NBA had on opening day. I just don't want that. So I respect that, but also I think that Sorsby does have a right. He doesn't have a right to the NFL, but at least a chance to get to the next level because apparently his talent warrants that. I've seen him just a little bit, good mobility, got a good arm, but yeah, he's going to have to wait. So I'm with you, Alon. He's got to go to a different league.
Yeah, and the problem is with going to that different league is if you don't just set the world on fire, I mean, kind of the best case scenario is maybe get an invite, to a practice squad kind of deal or off-season training program by an NFL team. So it's going to be very difficult for him, regardless of the talent that he has, to get into the NFL. I do believe that Roger Goodell, who works at the behest of the owners, I know sometimes we think that Roger Goodell, kind of swings the hammer the way he wants it to be swung, but no, the owners are the ones who kind of dictate what he does. He serves at their pleasure. The owners had to have gone, we do not want this. This is horrible optics for us. And Roger Goodell, I'm not saying all the owners collectively, but there must have been enough owners in the league who just probably said, or rumblings about that. And Roger Goodell also has been a good steward of the NFL financially. They've made a ton of money under his watch. So he probably doesn't want to bring this kind of headache in either.
Well, think about the guys that have been drafted in the supplemental draft in the past. Nothing to this extent. It's, as I said, Chris Carter, Josh Gordon, Bernie Kosar, Brian Bosworth, Bo Jackson. It's not, and even Bo Jackson, he just refused to play for the Buccaneers.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even like, he did anything terrible in college. They made him ineligible by going on a private jet, and the Buccaneers screwed him. And then the Raiders, swooped in. Al Davis saw an opportunity to piss off Marcus Allen even more, but they got Bo Jackson. It's never been like this, though. And gambling, the stigma of gambling is different than it was when Pete Rose was playing in baseball. But I understand that it's a bad look for the league. So I don't know if owners were put off by this kid. But then again, like we've seen in the past, I mean, Colin Kaepernick was blackballed from the NFL because of the PR hit. And, I think a lot of people that worked in the NFL and the owners were like, is it worth it to have this guy around to be asked questions about this every single day when he's not our starting quarterback? It's the same kind of deal here a little bit with Brendan Sorsby. So I do understand it, but I don't want to say I feel for the kid because it's his own stupid mistakes, but I almost kind of feel like he should go back to college football and be like, all right, I want the injunction placed again. It's like, no, too late. But he did win, and now I feel like he's kind of got screwed over with some bad advice by people in his corner. Or maybe at the end of the day, just there's nothing he could do. Also, there was, Jay Billis brought this up on the Rich Eisen show where he said this was going to get overturned anyway. So he was screwed either way. So again, yes, I know I'm sounding like I'm kind of being a little soft on the kid. And Pat H in the chat here and Ernie One saying, I don't gamble and I have no sympathy for him not being welcome to the NFL right away. I get that. I totally understand that. He should have his opportunity in time, but he did do something pretty bad. So maybe the punishment is he has to wait a year for his NFL career to start, and maybe he won't be drafted as high as he thought, and maybe somebody's getting a steal. He has to show remorse. Maybe he hasn't done. I haven't heard this kid speak too. I have no idea what he sounds like. So I never heard him talk, and maybe his legal counsel has told him not to. But I understand. I understand why the NFL told him to go away, and I think Brendan Sorsby has to figure it out now.
Yeah, he does have to figure it out. The one thing about this that I really don't like, it irks me, because what he did is wrong, and he broke rules, and there's no denying any of that. But there are people who have done far worse things, more morally and ethically reprehensible than he has, who have gotten more of a chance than so far he's getting. So that is the part of this that I don't like. That was the part of the injunction that I really liked that it was served, was because, look, the NCAA, the university, has a duty to the player and to the student. So now he's just kind of in this no man's land. And yes, what he did is wrong, but this is not getting into a street race and having vehicular, homicide, manslaughter kind of thing happen. This is not that kind of stuff. So that is why I really feel for him. But look, those things don't affect the bottom line of sports leagues, or not as much as what he did because of the gambling aspect. And what he did is, for whatever reason, and I'm not saying it's right, is a harder story to get away from than some of those other stories. Even though what he did, I would say, is much less morally reprehensible. It's just not. It's not on the same level of doing something where someone gets hurt or dies.
I'm with you on that. I think just the NFL cares more about their perception
Mm-hmm.
and the ethics of the game. And if fans start to question if something's corrupt, then they lose all credibility. So this is the NFL covering their ass and telling him you can't be a part of our league for right now. And that's all I'm saying. Like if they choose to do that right now and they have, then I get it. But if it's going to be where this guy's turned away every single time he tries to apply for the NFL, then that's tough. Like I don't know. Similar to Maurice Claret in a way, where he sued the league because of his age and everything, and then he got in with the Russian mafia. It was a whole weird deal. But yeah, I don't know. I see both sides of it. It's not black and white in my opinion. I think that a kid got screwed over with some bad advice, but also he screwed himself over with decisions he made 4 years ago.
Yeah, and in a way, it's kind of the justice that most people want to see. I just don't think structurally but the method of how it was served maybe was the best way of going about it. I do really think that the NFL could have. There's no way that they didn't. If they indicated to him and his people in any shape or form that, hey, we're going to have a supplemental draft or, there's these processes, even if they were just vague in that way, that's a real issue. And there's nothing really that can be done against the NFL. Like I said, there's this lawsuit. You brought it up already, but the NFL gets to do what they want to do. They got a lot of cover legally. They have a lot of money. They can fight you all day in court. So I think at the end of the day, he's just going to have to take this year and show remorse, like you said, Derek, but he's also going to have to figure out a way to play good football somewhere else, because that is going to be his best path into the league. I think sitting out a year and just training and then declaring for the draft, that would be a major mistake.
Now, you mentioned vehicular manslaughter, and I think I know what you're alluding to, Alon, and that'll lead us to the next topic here. But before we get into that, something that started this, Jeffrey Simmons, defensive tackle for the Tennessee Titans, got a huge contract last week that made him the highest paid defensive tackle in all of football. He gets $35.3 million a year. That surpasses the previous record by Chris Jones. He gets 3 years, $105.8 million with 100 guaranteed. So most of it guaranteed, just $5 million not. And that, well, first off, I think Jeffrey Simmons is a great player and deserves that contract. And he's had some hard years in Tennessee, but he's one of the best defensive tackles in all football. So definitely deserves that. How does that impact Jalen Carter, who is a young and upcoming force in this league, has had his own issues? You mentioned vehicular manslaughter. He had that whole thing in the draft where he got into a street race and one of his friends died. I think he was at the wheel of the car that impacted him, his friend, obviously. And that did not deter that did deter the Raiders and other teams from drafting him, but it didn't stop the Philadelphia Eagles, who took him, I think, 8th overall. So Jalen Carter, since that time, pretty good player. Some injury questions and some questionable things he's done on the field, like spitting on Dak Prescott in the season opener this past year. But the Philadelphia Eagles have a decision to make. Do they want to pay him in the same vein as a Jeffrey Simmons? Do they want to pay him $30 million a year? They just paid Jordan Davis $30 million a year, and he's more of a nose tackle. And what is Jalen Carter to them? Now, you also have the element of Max Crosby here. And I brought up in the past, the last few podcasts, about, the right trade compensation. Can you do like a Myles Garrett thing where you offer a player that's basically worth a first-round pick? And I brought up Nolan Smith, the pass rusher that got drafted with Jalen Carter in the first round in 2023, but hasn't really flashed yet. Thinking about it more, the Raiders should not ask for Nolan Smith. It should be Jalen Carter. That should be the guy to go after if they were going to trade away Max Crosby. Now, Jalen Carter in Las Vegas, is that a good idea? Probably not. With everything that went on with Henry Ruggs and his decision-making, probably not the best deal. Albert Breer has also said that the Eagles are hesitant to pay Jalen Carter. So is it where it makes more sense for the Eagles to have a proven commodity in Max Crosby and pay him $35 million a year as opposed to Jalen Carter? So I've changed my mind, Alon, when it comes to the Eagles offer to the Raiders, it should be a first and Jalen Carter. If they could get a second in there, cool. But maybe just a first and Jalen Carter would be enough to make the deal go down. But for the Raiders, do they want to go down that road? And sorry, that's a poor pun considering the previous, stuff with Jalen Carter. But do they want to go down or not? Shouldn't say it again. Do they want to do that? Do they want to draft a player that they passed on or trade for a player that they passed on in Jalen Carter that has, some checkered past? So just your thoughts on this, Alon. Jalen Carter, the player, and Jalen Carter, I know Pat H laughing at me. Jalen Carter, bad analogy. Jalen Carter, the guy that you could be paying for, or Jalen Carter, the guy that could be a headache for you in the future?
I think it'd be untenable for the Raiders to get him. I understand that. Look, they didn't draft him when they could have because of the fact of what he had done when he had just finished his career at Georgia. I think even though time has passed, I still don't think, and you don't always want to make things because of PR or things like that, but this might just not be a good situation for him. It just might not be. Philadelphia might just be a better place for Jalen, or any place else other than Las Vegas. But really, I think Mark Davis has kind of set the standard in terms of we're not going to get guys who have these problems. We're just not. And the community is still not, I don't want to say the entire community or city of Las Vegas hasn't forgiven Henry Ruggs, because I'm sure there are people who have. But this still stings. And bringing in another big, high caliber player who has a similar problem in their past, I just don't think is something that the Raiders would be able to do. I think it might be something that John Spytek, if that deal is there, tries to sell Mark Davis on, but I don't believe he would agree to it. I just don't think he would ascend to that, because it just, there'd be too much backlash. And I think he's done a pretty good job of setting a standard in terms of the kinds of people he wants around this organization since they've been here. And I don't think that's the kind of headache you want to bring in, similar to the NFL in a way, not with Sorsby, here, not with Jalen Carter. And it's a shame for Jalen Carter, because he has all pro kind of potential. He really does. Yeah. But it's just wouldn't work here. I do see Pat H say, why don't the Eagles want to pay Carter? Isn't that a red flag? Well, I think part of the reason they don't want to pay him, and Derek, answer this as well, but part of the reason they don't want to, it's not that they don't want to pay him, is that they have so many pieces on that team that need to get paid defensively and what they've already dedicated offensively, that there's going to be an odd man out. And the odd man out in this situation happens to be kind of a hybrid 3 technique. And you already have a dominant nose guard in Jordan Davis. So it's kind of redundant. And if you were going to bolster that, Max Crosby or a great defensive end would be the better bolstering piece than maybe potentially overpaying for a guy who spits in people's faces, which I still think, to quote Joe Buck, this is a disgusting act. That's what I thought when I saw that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I couldn't believe it was the first play, not even play, it was the first interaction of the season just last year, and he gets thrown out.
Yeah.
And there's some questions about him and his injuries, and I think he had shoulder problems, and I think Vic Fangio called him out. So there's a work ethic thing along with Jalen Carter. I want to say his name was brought up this offseason, and I'm not going to put a ton of stock into this, but this guy has gotten things right before. Ricky Scoops, who's well known in social media as far as tipping off people for NFL news before it happens, he did report that the Eagles offered Jalen Carter to the Raiders in a Max Crosby trade. There also was, I believe, last offseason, the Dallas Cowboys were approached by the Philadelphia Eagles to get Micah Parsons, and they did ask them about Jalen Carter in return, and the Eagles said, we're not trading Jalen Carter. Same thing with Myles Garrett. Apparently, the Eagles were offering something similar for Garrett to the Browns, and the Browns were asking for Jalen Carter, and the Eagles said, no, we're not trading Jalen Carter. Maybe they're willing to do it for Max Crosby, as you said, Alon. You have to put $60 million on your defensive line, not pass rushers, interior guys.
Yeah.
So Jalen Carter averages 4 or 5 sacks a year. Is it worth it to pay that type of guy? Where Jordan Davis, he's a run stuffer. He's a good player, but he's making $30 million a year. And eventually you got to pay Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. You already got, money going towards Jonathan Grenard. So, but if you're Howie Roseman, Does it make more sense? I'd rather pay $35 million to Max Crosby as opposed to Jalen Carter. Yeah, maybe. But I'd also think that Mark Davis would probably be like, I don't know about Jalen Carter, given the Henry Ruggs situation and what happened in Georgia. And am I getting that story right, Alon? Like,
Yeah.
it's where there was a street race and Jalen Carter was responsible for the passenger dying in an accident.
He was either driving or he was in the passenger seat or in the seats of one of the vehicles there. There was also a staffer for the Georgia football team who was there too. I think she lost her life. I mean, yeah, so it wasn't, I mean, it's basically he was involved in an illegal street race, somewhere around Athens, Georgia, and people died. People that were participating in it died. So I don't think he ever got charged with anything. And, that's the way it works. But the fact that he showed such poor judgment to even be involved in that is just a red flag. And I just don't think Mark Davis is willing to look. It's similar to Fred Biletnikoff in a way. And I'm not saying the situation is similar. What I'm saying is I think certain organizations and people that are close to organizations, Fred Biletnikoff, who's very important to the Raiders organization, there are red lines that they draw with the kinds of people that they draft because of what's in their history. And this is because of the Henry Ruggs situation. That is now a red line or a kind of a thing that the Raiders just don't touch because of that. That's what I think.
Yeah, and to what Alon's referring to is it's just a terrible, terrible story. And if you're a Raider fan, you know this. Fred Biletnikoff lost his daughter years ago to domestic violence. And since that time, the Raiders are adamant they will not touch anybody that has issues with that or a history with that. And I commend them for that. A lot of teams don't have that strict policy, and they should, but I'm glad the Raiders take that stance. And honestly, another thing, like a guy that's not mentioned a lot with Raiders, with the Raiders history, Al Davis for years, I think it may still apply to this day. Anybody that had a drug problem, he dropped them in a heartbeat because of what happened to Darryl Russell years ago. Great defensive tackle for the Raiders with John Gruden in the late 90s, and passed away way too soon because he couldn't, he had issues with drugs. So this could be where the Raiders organization just doesn't want to touch Jalen Carter. But yeah, it's in a conversation to be had at least. And I think that Howie Roseman would be thinking about it. I think at the end of the day, though, they're probably going to pay Jalen Carter, I think. But Pat H in the chat here says he looked good on the 49ers, worth their shit O-line. I think he's referring to Jalen Carter. I think you mean, D-line. I think I
was trying to figure that out.
I think that's what you're saying there, Pat H. That has been thrown out there that the Niners should make a bid for Jalen Carter. I wouldn't do that. You have to give up 2 first-round picks, and if I'm the Niners, and I think this is a pipe dream too, but if you're going to do anything, save those draft picks for Max Crosby. I'd much rather have Max Crosby than Jalen Carter. You just traded for Osa Odigizua. Alfred Collins is a young and upcoming player. They also have CJ West. They do have defensive tackle depth, but I would not give up the farm to get Jalen Carter, and then on top of that, have to pay him.
Yeah, especially if you have faith in Collins from Texas, and I think he's an interesting player. So you shouldn't give up the farm for Jalen Carter. And for Jalen Carter, it's great. When he does eventually get paid, he's going to make a lot of money, but he's going to be overpaid because I just think his play is way too volatile. And there are times where he looks like he's very inspired and is disrupting everything. And then there's other times where he's kind of a non-factor. And that can happen with defensive linemen, but it shouldn't happen with a guy who has the ability to be as dominant as Jalen Carter does. And then also you do have to question some of the dirty stuff he does, spitting in people's faces, grabbing face masks the way he does sometimes. It goes beyond just like being a tough, rough and tough guy. Like in Ndamukong Suh, who had his own dirty problems with stepping on people.
But he was a good guy.
Yeah.
I think honestly
on the field.
I think honestly the Eagles question if he's a good guy or not.
Yeah, which very much could be part of the issue for them. So yeah, it's tough. For the Eagles, you mentioned Cooper DeJean. He's going to have to get paid. Quinyon Mitchell. I mean, cornerbacks are not cheap. Maybe they're not making defensive end money, but good corners who win you Super Bowls and help you win Super Bowls are not cheap players. Go look at what the Kansas City Chiefs just did. So, yeah, we will see what happens, but I just don't see Jalen Carter probably is not going to stay with the Eagles for his entire career. I wonder who would take him on. Dallas would be interesting, but I just don't think it's the Raiders. The Niners, like I said, yeah, would it made them better immediately? Yes, but there's if you're going to give up resources to get him, you could give up those same resources and maybe a little bit more to get someone who's a much more bigger impact player. Like you mentioned Jeffrey Simmons at the top here, how this resets the market for Jalen Carter. Well, Jeffrey Simmons is coming on a horrible team, by the way, an all-pro season, and he had 11.5 sacks. Jalen Carter's not doing that. So look, if you're going to make a trade for a defensive tackle of some sort or even a hybrid inside-outside player, you better be putting up those kinds of numbers. You better be putting up Aaron Donald numbers.
Exactly. And I think, as Pat H in the chat here says, Simmons is miles better. Absolutely he is. The Raiders can't afford him, though, and the Raiders could use him. They definitely need help on their defensive line when it comes to the interior presence. But, yeah, I think at the end of the day, look, it was a risk going after Jalen Carter, but he fell to them, to the Eagles at 9. So I think they're ultimately going to pay him because they wanted it this way. Even though he's kind of a questionable character, they wanted him on the team. So in the end, I think Howie Roseman's going to pay for him. Real quick, other news that happened today in the NFL. Kyle Pitts. Did not see this happening, actually. I thought that they were just going to let him play out on his tag. Kyle Pitts agreed to a 3-year extension with the Atlanta Falcons. 3 years, $54 million, 36 guaranteed. It's the most money given to a tight end in a 3-year span. He makes not the top at his position annually. It's still George Kittle, Trey McBride, and then Kyle Pitts, who I think has had a mixed NFL career. You know, if you play fantasy football, he's a guy that everybody selects and doesn't really pan out. There's moments, I think, with Kirk Cousins where you're like, oh, my God, this guy's dominant against the Buccaneers. I want to say like the last few years. But overall, what was he drafted? 3rd overall in 2021?
5.5, almost 6 years ago now. Yeah.
And
he was a top 5 pick because he's a monster. Like he should be unguardable, and he's shown that he is.
Yeah. And got it. Looking back on that, it was Trevor Lawrence, it was Zach Wilson, and then Kyle Pitts. And this must be his second contract with the Falcons at this point. Yeah, it has to be. Right? Or am I wrong on that one?
Let's see, because
he probably had the 5th year option picked up or something. Yeah.
4th round pick, 2020. I'm sorry, not 4th overall pick, 2021.
4th overall pick. Who was 3rd then? Oh, Trey Lance. What am I talking about? Sorry.
Oh God. Yeah. So Zach Wilson and Trey Lance. Yikes. Yeah, this is his second. This is after his rookie contract. So I think this is considered his second contract. Is that right?
Wow, that's it. Okay. So he's playing on his rookie contract for quite some time. So he had the 5th year option and then the tag this year, and then he gets the deal. So, God, time goes by fast like that.
2024, the Falcons picked up the 5th year option on his contract.
Okay. And he hasn't played up to expectations, obviously being taken 4th overall. Like, that's a high draft pick for a tight end. But, they paid Drake London a couple weeks ago. They pay Kyle Pitts now. They're going to have to pay Bijan Robinson before we get to training camp here. And he's probably going to make the most money when it comes to running backs. So, there's potential there with Kyle Pitts, but I thought the Falcons, I don't know how good they're going to be. I don't know who the quarterback is. I think Tua, we'll see what happens. And then there's Michael Penix, but I thought the Falcons could have used, like, in a year where, we'll see if James Pierce plays football. He got his own things off the field, and they give up a 1st round pick this year. I thought to maybe, get some more draft capital, that Kyle Pitts could be a name you see at the trade deadline. And that also could not stop them. We've seen in the past where guys get contracts, and then a couple months later, Sauce Gardner, they'll dealt at the deadline. So it could still be on the table. But, yeah, Kyle Pitts staying with the Atlanta Falcons for now, which is kind of surprising to me.
Yeah, I want to know what he looks like, because like you said, with Kirk Cousins, he did have some flashes here and there. I mean, his rookie year, he was amazing, right? He had over 1,000 yards. Everybody thought, oh my gosh, this is the new kind of prototype, almost not Calvin Johnson-esque, but like kind of Darren Waller at his best in a way. Like a guy who can just size, dominate, speed, all those things. And it's just been very inconsistent. I want to know what he would look like with a decent quarterback and a good offensive line, a team that would let him get open and actually be able to work. I think he could be very similar in a lot of ways and better physically than Brock Bowers, but that's not the situation in Atlanta. He must love living there. I don't know. And maybe the market just not as strong for Kyle Pitts. But what you did say, I think, is right on the money. It's that it is common now, or becoming more common, to see players sign these kinds of deals and then they're traded because the team that's trading for them goes, perfect, we have them under team control. We don't have to worry about this big re-signing process. Maybe if there's an extension conversation that comes into there, so be it. But that's a whole hell of a lot easier to deal with than trading for a guy and going, man, I hope we're able to sign him, after this season kind of deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that this also sets it up for Brock Bowers to make the most money for tight ends next offseason when he's eligible for a contract. So, I'm with you, Lon, that seeing more and more where guys get deals. And then if you're going to give up all the draft capital, you have to know they're going to be there. That's why when Giannis gets dealt, he needs, to, confirm to the Heat, the Celtics, and the Timberwolves, I'll sign with you guys long-term if you trade for me. You can't just do it and be like, well, I hope he signs back. That's why the Celtics didn't want to pull the trigger. That's why the Bucks didn't want to pull the trigger with Jaylen Brown. So you have to know that guy's going to be there if you're going to give up all that draft capital in the end. All right, before we get out of here, Lon, a little quick jackass of the week in pop culture catch up.
Jackass of the week. I honestly didn't have one this week, Derek.
Fair enough.
Probably because it's so early in the week. I was kind of looking around. I was like, I haven't seen. Maybe there's some jackassery that went under my radar, but I didn't see any too much.
I have one. I'm gonna go with Brandon Marshall, former wide receiver in the NFL. I don't know if you saw this video, Alon, but he posted a clip of him driving around his Florida neighborhood and making his son run at 2:00 in the morning for disciplinary reasons. And he's kind of yelling at him the whole time, saying, like, if you want to be a man, you got to learn that, I'm going to hold you accountable for stuff. And he makes him run. He's not in a sketchy area. He's in the suburbs, and he's running with his dad next to him at 2:00 in the morning. And it's tough love. Now, would I do that? I don't know. I'm not a parent, so I have no idea. I'm not going to judge him on that. I really don't judge him on the actual act. Like we heard, after Jalen Brunson won Finals MVP, he talked about the tough love he received from his dad, Rick Brunson. He made him do the same thing where he had a bad practice. He make him walk home and not drive him home. And, that's a little much, but it kind of ignites a flame in you. It kind of ignites, that hunger, that drive that you're going to have from a young age, and it's going to stay there until you get to the professional level. So maybe that's the way that Brandon Marshall was raised. But if it was, his parents were not posting this online. So to me, I don't have a problem with Brandon Marshall doing this with his son. But if you're going to post it online for clicks, that's a jackass move. Yeah. So if you want to discipline your child, by all means, and without it being physical or causing harm to the child, I think that goes without saying. But if you're posting it for social media purposes, jackass move.
Yeah, that's a major jackass move. I mean, look, punishing already is enough. And 2 a.m., man, that sucks for that kid. But don't post it online. That's embarrassing for the kid. That's, you're doing it in a way too to get engagement and kind of show like this is the kind of father I am and stuff like that.
Yeah, no.
So, I'm not. No, that is jackass of the week material. I am thinking of one, and I did think of one, Derek.
Okay.
It's Becky Hammon, who I've been wanting to talk about the last week or so, but I keep forgetting about it.
Yeah.
She in 2023 said, Jalen Brunson is not an A1 dude. He ain't that dude. And so at Ace's shoot-around the other day, she was asked about Jalen Brunson, and what she said was, Jalen, all he did was prove history wrong. He proves he's an outlier, okay? So you can put his name next to Steph Curry and Isaiah Thomas, and I thought he played brilliantly, especially down the stretch. I mean, he was that A1 dude, Hammond said, but apologize for what I said. I'm never going to apologize for having an opinion. That's what ESPN pays me for. Just say, look, I was wrong. Just say I was wrong. I'm sorry I didn't say Jalen Brunson was an A1 dude. He clearly is. Just say it, Becky. It's okay to be wrong.
I hear you, Alon. I did think, and I want to confirm this, I do think she said the words, I was wrong. Okay, yeah. She says, "Wait, I have to comment to start. I was wrong. I was wrong. My opinion was wrong. Okay, let's go." So I'm with you. It was a bad take by her, and we've heard many people in media have bad takes before.
Sure.
I actually give her props for owning up to it, and that is her job when she is in that setting. Is it a good look when she's a basketball coach? No, not at all. But did she say something wrong? Yes, and she owned up to it. So to me,
She did say she was wrong. Okay, I
Yes.
didn't see that part of the quote.
yeah.
Good for her then. So
Okay.
sorry,
To
Becky,
me-
not jackass.
Yeah. All right. Well, there we go. Okay. As long as like there's many a time where I've given people the title of Jackass of the Week, and then come to find out I was wrong about the situation. So I could say I was wrong about them being a jackass. So fair enough to you, Alon, for realizing that.
I'm the jackass of the week. I'm very sorry, Becky.
Okay, real quick. Any pop culture catch up?
Pop culture, I am seeing Jackass movie
Hell
this
yeah, dude.
weekend.
Hell yeah.
And when this new movie, The Furious, comes out, or whether it's already out, I'm going to go see that as well. And I'm going to watch a Super Mario Galaxy movie this week because I just bought it.
Ooh,
Yeah,
nice.
I'm excited about that. But
There you go.
I haven't seen anything yet, but I will have more stuff for the next time we're on because I'm going to have seen 3 movies.
I can't wait for that. And I have a movie list that I want to check out. I think I mentioned I want to see Disclosure Day. These are all movies I may have to see when I go visit my mom in Houston in a couple weeks. But Disclosure Day, Toy Story 5, I'm seeing is getting great reviews. I obviously want to see The Last Jackass they're going to do together, Knoxville and Company, and of course, The Odyssey. I saw something today. I think Tom Cruise put out a clip. Did you see this, Alon, where he put like a montage together of all of his great performances leading up to this new movie that's going to come out where the director's name is escaping me. I think it's Alejandro. I'm going to screw up the last name. He's the director of Birdman and The Revenant. And
Okay.
he's making a new movie with Tom Cruise called Digger. And I don't know. I just thought Tom Cruise is not my jackass of the week, but like he's already starting this Oscar campaign like months in advance, and I'm like, just relax, dude. Like I appreciate you, man. You almost die for me in movies. I love the Mission Impossible series, but like I thought that was kind of like it's such cheese dick, honestly, when I saw that today. But there's a lot of movies I want to see. I just watched. There's a couple of series starting this weekend actually, so I'll watch them when I come back. But I want to see obviously the last season of The Bear. And Larry David's new series, Life, Larry, and the Pursuit of Unhappiness. There's a good lead-in episode of The Bear with, if you know the characters, I don't know the actors' names, but I think it's John Barenthal and the guy that plays Richie in the show. And they actually wrote the episode. It's a whole thing about before the series started. They take a trip to Gary, Indiana. So thoroughly enjoyed that episode. Highly recommend The Bear. It's a great series. But I'll be watching that when I come back from Italy, and I'll be doing that tomorrow. So I don't know if is Anthony Bourdain ever or any like these Travel Channel guys ever talked about going to different countries in a short amount of time? You ever watch their shows, Alon?
I used to watch Anthony Bourdain, rest in peace. But
Yeah, of course.
no,
He's having a movie coming about a biopic about him.
I don't know if they ever talk about that. So that would be interesting actually to see what their travel schedule like, because they're not spending like a week and a half there. Most of those people, they're going like for 2 days recording and then getting out of there because it's so expensive to make those shows.
Yeah, I think I'm going in with that mentality. Like I always watch like Conan Must Go. It's a great series on HBO Max, and he's going from place to place. And I'll just say this, people are kind of questioning why I'm going for such a short amount of time, and it's because I'm not giving a lot of PTO when it comes to the old job of Cumulus. And I'll also say 3 days in Italy with my family, I think that's more than enough. More than enough. But I do love my family, and I do love my sister, so going to have a great time in Italy, going to experience something I've never done before in life, got to try new things, so going to travel abroad and come back and tell you guys all about it. So I'll be back next week. Free agency starts for the NBA on June 30th. Maybe we come back then if there's enough news, but we'll play it by ear. But I'll see you guys until then. Lon, thank you, my man, and everybody in the chat. Thanks to Ernie1. Thanks to Pat H. Thanks to Mac Van. And I believe that's it. All right, everybody. I'll see you guys next week, and I'll give you a detailed report about Italy. Alon, say what you say as always.
Safe travels, Derek. And you might think that the Miami Heat gave up too much in the trade for Giannis, but that's just your opinion, man.